Welcome to the CondoVultures.com podcast with your host, Peter Zalewski, a Miami real estate broker, Wall Street consultant, and expert witness. This podcast is focused on identifying real estate buying opportunities in the South Florida condo market of Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. The CondoVultures.com podcast is not authorized by the South Florida real estate industry and will most likely annoy many of the region's talking heads. This podcast will feature straight talk and salty language that could be offensive to some. Please remember that past investment success does not determine future gains, especially in South Florida's volatile condo market. For more information, please visit CondoVultures.com.
Welcome to the Miami Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Peter Zalewski from Condo Vultures. If you're watching this video, you're just seeing a still shot of me. The reason you are is we're on summer break. It's June 2023. We're taking a month off. We're doing some back office work, and we're going to come back better than ever with some changes, some adjustments of some of the things we're doing. But I've decided to interrupt this summer break to go ahead and re-release a interview that I did with a developer who's coming under scrutiny right now in the Miami area. And I thought it was important to basically put this interview out. It's about a 90-minute long interview. It's with a developer called Rishi Kapoor from a company called Location Ventures. Very interesting conversation. Talks about his entire business model, his outlook, his background, how he got to Miami, how he went to the University of Miami. And I just thought it was fitting given some of the headlines that have come out in recent days. Let me read those headlines to you. Don't want to make any comments on my own, so I'm going to read you the headlines. First headline is coming out of the Miami Herald. It's dated May the 27th, 2023. Headline, Miami Herald, exclusive. Developer paid Miami's mayor $170,000 to push his project. Company records state. And if you're watching this video, you're going to be able to just go ahead and see it on the screen. If you're listening to this podcast on a traditional audio platform, go ahead and find a video platform where you can watch us, such as Spotify. You can also get us on YouTube. The handle is Condo Vultures, Condo Vultures. Second headline, this one came out June the 1st. Miami Herald headline, how a developer pushing a luxury Coral Gables high-rise became a tenant of the mayor. And third headline, this came out on Friday, June the 10th. I'm recording this on Monday, June the 12th. Here's the headline of the Miami Herald. FBI investigates developers' payments to Miami's mayor as SEC digs into company's finances. So a combination of all these stories prompted me to go ahead, pull out this recording that I did, about a 90-minute long recording, came out in June of 2020, was published on Anchor. It was audio only. I've gone ahead and remastered the conversation, put it into a video format. Nothing was changed in terms of the content, anything that was being said. There is a transcript at the bottom of the video if you're watching the video. And again, if you're listening to the audio, this is going to pertain to you, but I would encourage you to go check out the video. But if you're actually watching the video and you see the transcript, there might be some typos. That is all AI computer generated. I had nothing to do with the transcription. It's basically where the AI is. I'd say it's probably 95% accurate. So you will see some mistakes, but none of the words were altered in any way. So that being said, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a commercial break. And then after the break, you'll be able to listen to or watch my 90-minute interview with Rishi Kapoor, developer out of Coral Gables right now. Previously, he was in Coconut Grove. And you get a sense of who the gentleman is. You get a sense of his history, his background, and the various business models. So I hope you enjoy that. And watch for us to return in July. We got some pretty interesting and exciting things going on. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast or videocast, as well as like us. I guess it helps with the algorithms and we'll be able to take our message to more people. So all that being said, enjoy your summer. Well, at least June, and we will see you again in July. And by the way, go Miami Heat and go Florida Panthers. So after the break, you'll go ahead and hear my interview with Rishi Kapoor.
It's a simple formula and it works. Buy low, sell high. We're Condo Vultures. And when it comes to your real estate, we help you buy low. At Condo Vultures, we represent the buyer. And now's the time to buy. Log on to CondoVultures.com for more information. CondoVultures.com. And remember, before you sell high, you have to buy low. Featured in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, 60 Minutes, and Time Magazine. Condo Vultures Realty, a licensed Florida real estate brokerage capitalizing on the condo correction since 2006.
Welcome to Condo Vultures Podcast. This is Peter Zalewski. I'm your host. This is episode 12 in our podcast series. As I mentioned in episode 11, we were using this time to sort of break out what we're doing. We learned from what we did in the first 10 episodes, and now we're going a little bit of a different direction, trying to give equal amount of real estate to our South Florida Roundtable, which was episode 11, as well as our guest presentation. So you heard the Roundtable in episode 11. In episode 12, which is where we are today, we're going to actually have more time to spend with our guest. And what a guest I have. I have a real estate developer looking at somewhere in the ballpark of $500 million investment down here in the South Florida area, originally from Atlanta, went to so he's a Canes fan, and his parents have relations going back to India. So we're going to get into some of that. We're going to talk about what the market is like. We're also going to talk about why he believes in South Florida. What's his name? His name is Rishi Kapoor. If you don't know that name, you better start paying attention, because this is a guy who seems to be on the upswing. He actually got to Miami in 2002. And if you don't know what the significance of 2002 is, well, maybe you weren't here back in the day, because back in the day, that was right when we started our condo boom runs. Last run began in 2003, went through to 2010. Then we began another cycle in 2011. So after that long introduction, let me introduce you to Rishi. Rishi, you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me, Peter.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for carving out time. I will say, you and I have never really formally met. We've had some interactions at little events, and fortunately, you're still willing to talk to me. A lot of developers don't like to talk to me, so I'm glad I can still get a developer on the line.
Well, hopefully by the end of it, we still feel the same way.
Absolutely. I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. Now, Rishi, let me give you the rules of engagement so you know. This podcast and the real estate industry tends to be a little bit of cursing or salty language is what we call it. If for some reason you slip and you say something that you can't say on TV, go ahead and speak naturally. We're looking for straightforward talk.
Sure.
Our audience is expecting straightforward talk. So don't be afraid to sort of speak openly about anything and everything that kind of comes to your mind. As mentioned, I want to spend 20 minutes talking about who you are, why you're here. And then I want to spend the second 20 minutes sort of talking about what you envision, what's going on with some of your projects. Obviously, we're dealing with COVID-19, which nobody saw coming. We're dealing with protests related to the George Floyd killing. So, there'll be some other questions and answers along the way. And I will tell you, I have a dark sense of humor. So if I make a snide remark, that's just who I am. So
No problem.
you good with that?
I can hold my own, no problem.
All right. That's exactly what I like to hear. And that's what the audience is hoping to hear as well. So Rishi, tell me a little bit about yourself. From Atlanta, and you got to South Florida, you got to Miami in 2002. But you kind of give the audience an idea of exactly who you are and what that upbringing was until you got to Miami.
Yeah, for sure. So my family came from India just over 50 years ago and settled in Atlanta, Georgia. Family has predominantly been in real estate investment through different asset classes. My father's original story was he was an engineer at Lockheed. And when he made enough money from an industrial building that he bought as his first property to equal his salary and the young family that he was raising, he ultimately made the switch to real estate investment and grew a portfolio there from single family homes to about 20 boutique and budget hotels throughout the Southeast. So things like Red Roof's Inn, Days Inn, etc. I grew up going to Ramada conventions around the world. It was really it was really a joy, and being immersed to all of that from an early age.
I'm
And then,
sure.
yeah, and then we've got a portfolio of commercial office space and flex centers in the Southeast and New Delhi, India as well. So that's what I grew up in. And then ultimately I came down for school visits in November of the year prior to moving down. And I saw people laying out on the intramural fields and, wearing bathing suits in the middle of November. And I was like, this is where I want to go to school.
Absolutely. Now, I want to stop you right there because I got a couple questions I want to ask you just to get a sense about you before we get into the in the Miami location. So first and foremost, what did your family say when you said you're going to Miami and you're leaving beautiful Atlanta, beautiful Georgia? Because remember, it's a lot of ACC country up that way.
Yeah, ACC and SEC, and all of my family that immigrated to the United States, I would say 90+% of them that ended up in college went to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I was going to
And
say, right?
and and my brothers went there, my father went there. It was definitely controversial in my family not to be going to Georgia Tech. And for me, I wanted to spread my wings and live in a different part of the country, and we had a whole host of college trips lined up. But as soon as I came to Miami, experienced it, obviously the football team was really good in 2001 and 2002.
That's right. They
And
were.
I, yeah, and I love football. And ultimately, we just applied. I forgot if they call it early action or early decision. I got my acceptance and a scholarship, and I was like, "This is where I'm going." So ultimately, it wasn't popular as a family decision at the time because
Mhm.
we're a very close family. But ultimately, I think my parents were very proud of the way that I was able to grow as a person by essentially living on my own outside of the family sphere.
Wow, interesting. So, what would you say is your favorite adopted Miami or South Florida food?
Man, I would say there's so many of them, but
Nice.
basically anything I can find on the menu at Harry's and Coral Gables, Havana Harry's, that is.
Oh,
We
are you? Oh, really? That's what you like, Van Harry's?
Yeah, just we've loved going to Havana Harry's and
Over
getting
there
some.
on Lejeune and US 1.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And
For disclosure, one of my buddies, his wife's family owns it.
oh, really? Well,
Yes.
tell them they're doing really good work there and that they've got the best sangria in town.
Best sangria. Well, let me ask you: have you had the imperial rice?
I don't think I've had that. No.
Oh my gosh, Rishi! If you got a chance, order that thing, but don't expect to sleep the rest of the day. It's effectively like a Cuban version of a lasagna.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
tremendous, tremendous. Sorry, I kind of like my food, so
Yeah. Now, likewise, they're a good shop over there.
nice, beautiful, beautiful. So coming from Atlanta, you came down here. You were the black sheep. You instead of going to Georgia Tech, staying in Georgia, you decided to come to Miami. How long did it take for the family to sort of realize you were the smart one?
Um, that's interesting. I think that clearly within my first year here, I think for anybody, they see a level of growth, and my parents noted that. I remember we were sitting at the Fridays across the street from the University of Miami.
Yes.
I had been elected my pledge class president. I was getting onto the IFC, in the fraternity world there, and
Yep.
just
Yep.
excelling. And I think they noticed that, we were very tight, and not that I was like a family boy or a mama's boy, so to speak, but just we were very close. And, to see the growth in the first year, I think they realized it was good for me as a young man to kind of leave the nest and find some growth outside of what was comfortable.
Now you are a fan of baseball. You like baseball. You played baseball. You're also a Braves fan. And again, this is
Mhm.
Miami. There's a little bit of a rivalry. Well, it used to
Yeah.
be Braves, Marlins. Have you come to at least adopt the Marlins, or are you just all in Braves?
I mean, I will go to Marlins games when the Braves are in town wearing my Braves uniform very proudly. Um, and unfortunately, recently, I mean, no, the Marlins, like, I just like good sports.
Yes.
I just love to see good competition, and it's just a shame to see how the community base here has gone through so many cycles of great teams that get dismantled. So,
Yep.
some of my best friends that are from South Florida are diehard Marlins fans, and I got to give them credit for being able to do that because I was spoiled, as a Braves fan, especially in the '90s when
Oh,
man,
Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz. I mean, yeah, no, no, no.
a
So,
hundred
so
percent.
you,
There's 14
we
years.
oh, they were on a roll. What did they win? They won the division 9 out of 10 years or something in the
I
90s.
I think it was 14 straight years, if I'm not
14 straight years.
yeah, if
So,
I'm not
so
incorrect.
our audience is all over the world. We will go from Prague to Sydney, go from Toronto to Buenos Aires. So mention or explain some things along the way. So one of the things I want to explain right now is that when I was talking about the Marlins versus the Braves, these are the Major League Baseball teams. Atlanta has the Braves and Miami has the Marlins. And
Yeah.
we all know baseball. It's the U.S. version of cricket.
Exactly.
But you're not a cricket fan. The Indians are very big cricket fans. Granted, you're born
They-
here, but I'm sure there had to be some influence when your parents came over. And,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
Chennai is a big cricket town.
yeah, I mean, I've been to India about a dozen times throughout my life, and definitely I have my own cricket bat still with me,
Nice.
that I had as a kid playing with my cousins, and I think that clearly that's the closest analogy to baseball. So having that experience is probably why somewhere in there I love baseball so much. But just I haven't been a close follower of cricket, although my family over there obviously is with the rivalries that
Yes.
that India has.
Yeah, and if you watch on Netflix, they actually have a series based on the team out of Mumbai.
I've heard
y-
about that.
Yep.
I'm gonna watch that.
Yeah. And I will tell you, I learned to play cricket when I was in Australia. I had a
Okay.
work visa.
Yep.
I was in Australia and I was playing on a softball team there because they were all interested in the Yank playing softball or baseball. So they invited me to come play some cricket. So that's sort of where my interest in understanding of cricket comes from. But what I wanted to tell you is Broward County, we actually have a cricket ground up there. And
Do
they
you really?
put on, oh my God, they put on tournaments. They bring in some of the best, well, I wouldn't say the best cricket players in the world, but up and coming, like juniors or so. And it typically goes on in the summer and you get huge crowds out there for the cricket.
Is that people coming from the West Indies and other parts, or is
Yes.
it just
Yes.
local?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination of the two. I don't really know how it works out, but there's a publicly owned cricket ground. It's the
Oh,
damnedest thing. It's over there in Lauderhill, which I go
wow,
up there because if you like Trinidadian food, great Trinidadian restaurant up there.
nice.
Yep. So, anyways, enough about my restaurants. So you get to Miami. You're going to business school,
Yes.
and
So, mhm.
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So, went through business school at studying finance and management, and ultimately had a great experience there. Love just a big part of who I am as a person, and just really a first class experience. And that's I always thought I was going to go back to Atlanta after my 4 years in school, but because of and just falling in love with South Florida, and then you've been here, so you understand this, Peter, is that in the early 2000s there was a lot of buzz of Miami growing as a city, so there was a lot of excitement with what was happening. I mean,
That's right.
half of the buildings that you see in downtown weren't here,
That's right.
and it was a very exciting time. You have the Performing Arts Center coming up. You see Miami growing to this luxury destination
Hmm.
on the world stage, no longer just like as really thinking about it solely as South Beach. So
Exactly.
it was a really exciting time to be kind of maturing here
Hmm.
as a person. And then ultimately I applied to law school and finished law school at the University of Miami, and just kind of, now I've been more a Miami resident in my life years than I have an Atlanta resident. So this is home.
Good. Now I want to ask you. So you went from business school. When you went to business school, what did you think you wanted to do when you got out of it?
So I originally thought I wanted to be a lawyer,
Okay.
and that was something that was just kind of always in my mind. And
Mhm.
then I just realized I got more interested into business classes. So I originally started as a political science major
Okay.
when I came in, but through the business school, you could actually do it two ways. It was either through the regular arts and science program, or there was also a poli-sci major that you could take a track through the business school.
Got it.
And that came down to a really interesting phone call where I had asked somebody that had graduated the year before me, and they just said, "Listen, the business school is where it's at. Definitely spend your time there if you have an option." So once I started taking the prerequisites and getting more into it, I just realized how much I love business more than I love the law. And then the most inspirational kind of event, if you will, of of kind of where that shift happened was my senior year. I was a finalist in the business plan competition at the University of Miami. I had a great mentor that's one of the trustees of the university. And ultimately, that was like a life changing experience that I had already been accepted to law school.
Hmm.
I wanted to go forward with that. But at that point, I knew that I really wanted to create. And that's like the passion that is the most exciting to me. And I want to be remembered as is as a person that is a creator. And unfortunately, that drive for creativity would likely land me in legal malpractice. So I think that ultimately that was very influential, and
Yes.
I already knew I was going to find a different path.
Okay, so when you said you went to law school after business school, sometimes people think, okay, he doesn't want to end his college. Yeah, so he wants to keep on taking classes. But no,
Yeah.
that's obviously a joke. Any regrets you didn't take architecture, given the fact that you are now in real estate, you're developing a
Yep.
whole different variety, and you're paying a hell of a lot of money to architects along the way, although they would say they're not getting paid shit. Oh, by the way, Rishi, if you want to curse, feel free to curse. So
Yeah. So, um, I wish I studied more of that in school, even if it was an elective,
mhm.
because I do not have any regrets that I'm not the architect that's producing the plans behind what it is that we're developing.
Yep.
But I would have appreciated, I think, some of more of the history and the trends and just appreciation for that craft, which we have very heated and passionate sessions with many of our architects because they're all very proud and talented and defensive
Yes,
of their work.
yes,
I mean, essentially they're artists is the way that I look at it.
that's right.
And so I respect that. So I've been very much an architecture student on my own time as I try to just learn more about what's happening in the world, not just here regionally. But yeah, I think it would have been great to have had some exposure at that time. But, ultimately as a developer, you're using 360 sides of disciplines,
Mhm.
whether it's marketing or management and finance and law, you're really putting together all of these and more, all of these different disciplines in order to kind of put together what it means to be a quote unquote real estate developer.
Yep.
So, if one trait is weaker than another, I don't, that's the beauty of our field is that you can put together the right team for any given project.
Now you weren't able to take architect classes, but you were able to take legal classes. Therefore, you're probably saving a bundle on your legal expenses when it comes to negotiation and possible litigation. How has that served you, even though you don't practice law?
Yeah, I mean, I use there's no doubt use the legal education on a daily basis. We now, our firm in the full-time staff is just over 25 people. And we have our own general counsel that is a part of the firm. It's actually my brother, who is an attorney that moved down from Atlanta a couple of years ago to join us. So on a day-to-day basis, I mean, the education is invaluable to be able to discuss contract subjects, just handle yourself in
Yep.
negotiations. All of that is invaluable, and it just it if nothing, I mean, obviously there's been developers who are very successful that don't have a legal background. I can just say it helps speed up that part of the conversation where we don't have to go third party on every discussion, but we do use some of the best attorneys who are probably my closest teammates as we structure deals and investment funds, et cetera, and work out subcontractor and contractor agreements. But we do send that out to third parties that then coordinate with myself and our general counsel.
Got it. So your brother is the one who is handling the law side for the firm, or
Hmm.
okay,
Yep, that's
okay,
correct.
okay.
Yep.
And yeah, I think I saw him when I was going through the bio when I was doing some prep work on it. What's your brother's name?
My brother's name is Romy Kapoor.
Romy Kapoor. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. Interesting. Going back to the architectural side, looking at some of your properties, and by the way, if anybody wants to check out some of your stuff, some of the
Mhm.
projects that you built or things you're doing, where do they go? Do they go to location venture, or I'll tell you what, why don't you say the website?
Yeah, it's location.ventures. And you can see our portfolio there. A lot of it gets kind of real time updated through the press
Mhm.
section. And then you can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, where we're active on announcements and updates regarding our portfolio.
Okay, and so the name of the firm of which you're the CEO, is Location Ventures. What's sort of the meaning of that? That gives you, or why don't you put it in your words? What kind of
Yeah,
message are you trying to convey?
for me, it was always about creating a platform
Hmm.
to be able to pursue the creation of a product, which to me was real estate, and ultimately that's what I circled back around to, having been exposed for it towards it for much of my life. And so it really started with the ventures aspect, that this was going to be a platform of creating businesses and creating opportunities, and really just finding our niche in various opportunities as we moved forward. And then the first part of it came after that, which was obviously, real estate is about location.
That's right.
And ultimately for us, the genesis of the name was the marriage of, great locations and pursuing ventures of where we could create value for ourselves and our partners.
I like to say, correct me if I'm wrong, I like to say if you're going to go long on something, you're kind of a venture investor. And if you like to go short, or if you want the market to go down, you're kind of a vulture investor. Would that be an accurate way to sort of describe it to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very fair. Is that, we are definitely patient value creators, and that's with patient capital, long-term horizons. And I think that's a fair statement to make.
So Rishi, why don't we take a short commercial break? On the other side, we'll start to get into some of your different product types, what you
Cool.
see going on in the market, and what you envision. That sound good?
Sounds great, Peter.
All right, fantastic. You're listening to the Condo Vultures podcast. This is Peter Zalewski. I'm your host. I have the pleasure of having Rishi Kapoor of Location Ventures on. We're going to take a little short commercial break. I'm going to try to peddle you some services with one of these ads. And then on the other side, I'm going to start to ask Rishi what the hell is going on in the South Florida condo market and why the hell are you a developer? So stay tuned. This is Peter Zalewski of the Condo Vultures podcast. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. And I wanted to alert you that if you have a property that you're looking to sell in the Tri-County, South Florida area, I would encourage you to reach out to Jenny Cortez, a licensed real estate broker with cvrrealty.com. She's my partner. She's been in the business for north of 15 years. More importantly, she knows the market. She knows how to get a deal done. And she also realizes that it's more important to get a price that you can accept and sell the property rather than to hold firm on some price that's never going to be achieved and ultimately languish on the market. So if you're looking to do a deal that you want a skilled expert who can help you sell a property, reach out to Jenny Cortez at 305-865-5859, 305-865-5859, or visit her website, cvrrealty.com. Welcome back to the Condo Vultures podcast. This is Peter Zalewski. I'm your host. This is segment 2 of our podcast, in which we have the opportunity to have a discussion with the real estate developer / investor / non-practicing attorney, but who goes by the name of Rishi Kapoor, originally from Atlanta, set up shop down here when he came to go to the U, which is the University of Miami, back in 2002. He's been through 2 cycles. He's now building, he owns properties, and he's doing a whole variety of things. So we're going to ask Rishi to sort of give us some insight as to what he's up to, why he's doing it, and what he sees going forward as the country and the world deals with COVID-19 and the U.S. deals with protests related to the death or the murder of George Floyd. So Rishi, you up to the task? Can you answer some of these questions?
Let's give it a go. I think we'll have a good conversation.
Fantastic. And by the way, if I didn't say it earlier, Rishi's the CEO of Location Ventures, and you guys are based over in the Grove. You're right there on Bayshore Drive, not far
That's
from
correct.
Montes. So Rishi, you're involved in a whole variety of different real estate type of product. You seem to be very heavy on the residential, more so than the commercial. So why don't you give us a general overview? And if you could start from the small end and work your way up big to kind of where you guys have your $400 to $500 million
Yep.
tied up.
So Location Ventures is a 4-division firm that we have 4 niches, somebody that runs each of the different divisions. and that I oversee along with a couple of subsidiaries for that I'll get into as well. So number one is
Okay.
we do very high end single family homes. For example, we're finishing houses that were designed by Caesar Molina and Max Strang, two very prominent local architects. And the thesis just basically being that they're $10 million plus homes. The concept being that we are putting up a personal resort in a premium location and trying to save affluent buyers time where they're looking for a really high end custom home experience. So that's division one. Um, yeah, sure.
Okay. If I could stop you there. Now, what I want to ask you is, you guys are building high end. How do you define high end? I mean, typically the way I look at luxury versus non luxury is I use a dollar amount, not necessarily an architect or materials or anything like that. So for us, it's $1 million or more. Your luxury. High end to you means typically what kind of price range, or what's on the low end of it,
Yeah,
and how
so
high does it go?
everything we're working on right now is 10 to 20 million. Um,
10 to $20 million
that's correct.
is the ask
Mhm.
price. Okay. So that would be high end. And also too, it looked like, just in checking out your portfolio. And again, if anybody wants to see what some of the projects you've done, go to
Mhm.
location.ventures. Okay. And you'll be able to see that. Now, looking at some of it, looks like you guys are doing, lack of a better word, you're doing infill development. So you're going into
Yep.
communities that already exist. Maybe you're buying a vacant lot, or you're buying a house, you're tearing it down. It could be an expensive house, tear it down, and you're putting up your masterpiece on it. Would that be an
That's
accurate
accurate.
assessment?
We in all of our business lines, and this is a common, as we talk about the divisions, this is a common theme between them, is that we're looking to go into the most desirable submarkets for our product type. So that is an accurate statement.
Okay. Okay. And I'm just wondering, in terms of your
Mhm.
portfolio of dirt, and you're going to get into other things, land
Yep.
that you kind of have in the, on the conveyor belt. Do you guys tend to hold on to dirt? You buy it and then you're land banking, waiting for it, the time to build, or do you guys go in and buy the dirt when you're ready to pull the trigger and sort of put up,
We
one of your
definitely do both.
masterpieces?
It depends on the
Okay.
opportunity. There's almost every deal that we've been involved with, both on the residential and commercial side, have been off market transactions that we have taken time to carefully plan and work with the seller. And we like patient sellers that our firm does not take entitlement risk. So we'll spend time
Hmm.
where necessary to get the appropriate entitlements in place. We'll work with the seller on what that structure and timeline looks like. And then many of our residential projects, they were bought from estate sales or unfortunately out of court for one reason or another. So we're very patient in getting our transactions into the factory, as you kind of said, on the conveyor belt. And then that typically allows us that once we've closed on the transaction, we're off to full speed on development activity because we would like to avoid as much carry cost as possible before getting into the heart of the development.
Okay, now, just for explanation for some of the audience,
Mhm.
because again, they're all over the world. You mentioned off market. Can I interpret that as meaning it's not doesn't necessarily have a for sale sign in front of it? This might be somebody you know somehow, some way, or it comes to you and you're able to buy it rather than going to the MLS or going on Realtor.com or Zillow
Yeah,
and finding it that way.
yeah,
Is
that's
that what you mean
correct.
by
And
off market?
we're probably presented on any given week anywhere from 5 to 10 transactions through what we just consider various spheres of influence, whether that's brokers, whether that's bankers, lawyers, you name the professional type. We're now in a fortunate position. I think people know with our substantial pipeline of projects that we're working on here in South Florida that we are a player. So we look at a lot of opportunities every week. We're always courteous with those that bring us an opportunity to provide feedback. Our general thought is that if you take the time to bring us something, we want to take the time to reply appropriately in kind. And ultimately that's been the way we have developed most of our properties. However, I will say some of the other ones are just through relationships. Like we have a couple of some very prominent South Florida families that are investors with us that have brought us deals. And then other ones have just honestly been networking where we get to know people and just out of coincidence, it ends up being a great real estate opportunity. And we're able to convert that into something that works both for the seller and us.
Now, at the risk of having a bunch of realtors
Mhm.
bug the shit out of you, do you actually buy anything that's ever listed, or is it always off market? Are you one of these organizations where if it's been listed, everybody else has already seen it, they passed on it, and that's why it's been listed type of mentality? How
I
do you
mean,
guys
we
treat it?
definitely look at things that are on the market. So, I mean,
Oh, you
there's
do?
no
Okay.
doubt
Okay.
that we look at opportunities that are on the market. I just think it's indicative of our approach that I outlined, as well as our philosophy towards development, that a lot of the value is typically getting into an opportunity on your own terms early in the process.
hmm
And when
With your own
correct.
fuse, your own
And if
schedule. Yep.
if
Yep.
you're
Yep.
dealing with
Yep.
something that's on market, there's obviously a lot of pressure from the brokers that want to close within a certain amount of time, and sellers that are,
Yep.
clearly in the mood to transact as soon as possible, as opposed to off market deals
hmm
where, you can really structure something that works on a timeline that behooves both sides of the transaction.
Well done. Well done. The other thing you mentioned
Mhm.
was entitlements. Anybody out there who doesn't understand entitlement basically means, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Rishi, because this is your business. Entitlement means you basically go to the city, you tell them what you want to do. They tell you yes or no, make these changes, and then you can do it. And then at that point, you would actually step in and purchase it once you have the
Yeah,
entitlements in place. Is that
that's
correct?
well said, and we've definitely bought opportunities that are what you would call as of right, which means that the opportunity is zoned appropriately for the use that you want to develop. So we have purchased as of right opportunities, and then we also, as I said, if we're going to do something that needs entitlements, as you succinctly outlined, we'll wait and work through that process prior to closing. Yes,
Got it. Okay. All right. Sorry. I like to always fill in some of
no,
the
it's
blanks for
great.
the audience because if they're out there, they might be like, oh,
That's
yeah,
great.
what the hell is that? So, okay. I'm sorry. So that was division one. You're talking single family infill developer. And it's
Yep. So
part two
yeah,
or
so our
venture
second
two?
division is multifamily renovations, what we consider our value add business. So, for example, we purchased 24 units out of 24 in a condominium across the street from the University of Miami. It was a 30-year plus building that had never really gone through renovations, and was what I would call a low middle market rental, which we then renovated, implemented a more entrepreneurial business plan, which was a co-living prototype for our fourth division, where we did furnished rentals and rented by the bed. And this was years ago, before people were even talking about co-living here in South Florida.
hmm
And ultimately, we took rents there from $2 a foot to about $4 a foot. Um, yeah,
Well
that's been a
done.
great asset and a great business plan. So we are replicating that business plan in other areas. So that's an exciting division for us. And then, really, as I go through these divisions, the primary. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Please.
if I could stop you,
Yep.
if
Yep.
I could stop you in that division. So, I'm just going to make this point to the audience, and then I'm going to ask you. So, members of the audience will hear that this is the last piece of dirt. If you don't buy this site, there's never going to be another one. Florida is running out of, and
Yeah.
South Florida is running out of land. You will hear that from people pitching you to sell you stuff. The reality is that in Florida, under the law, and I'm not an attorney, technically you're an attorney, you can recycle condos, and the way you do it in Florida, it's called a termination. There's a way where a supermajority of the unit owners vote to basically terminate. and the building will effectively change legally from a condominium to an apartment building type of scenario. So that's a condo termination. So Rishi, what I'm wondering is you went in and bought 24 out of 24 condo units. Why didn't you guys terminate it, with the idea being if it's a rental, it might have less tax exposure rather than each individual condo being assessed at, a higher price, because assuming individuals, they got more money in it rather than,
Yeah,
a rental
so
building.
we've been through our kind of tax and legal analysis, and it depends on the
Hmm.
property. There's been areas where we've terminated condominiums because that was the appropriate strategy, and then in other
Okay.
reasons, not just tax, where ultimately on an exit, you still might want the flexibility of being able to sell unit blocks in bulk to potentially investors that do not want to buy the entire
Nice.
building. They might be looking for blocks of rentals. And for example, in
Yes.
that property, we've successfully been able to, for us, everything's about diversification of income. So for us, even
Hmm.
within that asset, we have short term leasing that gets one price matrix. We have long term leasing that gets another price matrix. And then we have furnished long term rentals that then give a third pricing tier. So, for us to really just look at that opportunity, we wanted to maintain maximum exit opportunity flexibility. And then in a condo environment, they actually take in the average of some of your surrounding buildings. So if you're in an area
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
even though you've made substantial improvements, the area's average might be weighing down your tax assessment, and that might just be the best decision for that property. So I think there's a lot of factors
Got
that
it.
go into whether to terminate or not.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
And
And
then
then
Division
Vision
Three.
3 for us is boutique luxury condominiums. So we are building, it's about $130 million sellout at Villa Valencia in downtown Coral Gables. The aim was 39 custom homes in a condominium environment. So our average unit size is 3,000 square feet plus, with 1,000 square feet of terraces. They're really meant to be for what we consider right sizers that are leaving primarily larger homes with upkeep, and they want to really have condo living without compromise, is the way that we look at it. So
Hmm.
the thesis behind the projects is basically like this one, Villa Valencia, is to build the most luxurious condominium residences in the history of Coral Gables. That's what we set out to do. And and then we're
Wow.
selling there, the condo market very well, Peter. We're selling there between 900 and $1,000 a foot. And
Yeah, I was looking at the listings on the multiple listing service. Looks like you're asking the average of
Mhm.
3.3 a door, 975
Yep.
a foot is the ask
So
in the
we
MLS.
and people are seeing the value. We've sold 30% of the building, 20 just over 25 million in sales. And
Hmm.
ultimately we are finishing the units at a very high level. So they're completely turnkey. You're not moving into what would be,
Okay.
as you know, a decorator ready unit, which is just a different business plan where we're delivering them
Yep.
what you would call furniture ready. And then we're also investing in high levels of home technology. We're the first condominium project in the United States to partner with Delos out of New York City and their Darwin system for air purification, water purification, and circadian rhythm lighting. So basically, we're trying to just make the healthiest home possible with the technology that is out there. And all of that is included. So when you buy one of our units, you're getting all of those included. And then we have amazing amenity package. I mean, on a square foot to square foot basis, I would argue that we are one of the highest percentage of amenities in South Florida, with a hammam, his and hers, spas, his and hers, gym, 78-foot resort style pool, private cabanas. We just have a lot of amenities for our residents. So that, the price per foot is probably a little misleading because as you know, people look for that on what is the price that you're paying on an actual unit, but in a building like ours,
Mhm.
it's not apples to apples with other comparables. You just get so many more amenities for only 39 residences, and I think that's a big reason why we're achieving some of the highest prices ever seen in Coral Gables.
So the building, and excuse me, because I haven't
Mhm.
gone past that building
Yeah.
simply because we've been on lockdown and I don't have a car, so I have to take Uber. I gave up my
Nice.
car like 7 years ago because I'm kind of cheap. Where is it in terms of construction? It's under construction, it's completed, or
Yeah, so
this is
this
all
is,
pre-construction?
we are into vertical construction. So if you drive by now, you'll see the
Okay.
tower crane, and we completed foundations a few months ago. We'll be up to the second floor within a month, and we'll be delivering the project towards the end of the summer of 2021.
And have you lost any time? Because everybody's lost time basically because of COVID-19. How has
Yeah,
COVID-19 impacted your schedule? Both from a construction as
you
well
know,
as a sales
we,
perspective.
as for COVID there, and I handle the COVID conversation kind of again in a matrix of our four divisions, depending on whether it's
Mhm.
pre-development, in development, or into a post-operational phase. So for us on the in construction projects, we've been very fortunate where we have our financing, everything's been moving ahead, and we're completely on schedule at Villa Valencia. And that's, we've had some crews that have been slightly diminished. We had to deal with some permitting
Mhm.
topics, with the city of Coral Gables. Dur- yeah, during
Always happens.
definitely an adventure there. And, we're building almost $300 million worth of property in Coral Gables. So we're very invested in that community. We're actually moving our headquarters from Coconut Grove to a building that we own in downtown Gables. So we're big believers in that market, but permitting is definitely an adventure. Uh, and
Oh, wow. Okay. So you've opened up all kinds of questions. The quickest question, and I want to go back to the Valencia. Um, I thought the Grove is up and coming and it's the place to
yeah,
be. And the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal say everything's happening. You guys are bailing on the
so
Grove and you're going to the
so it's not
Gables?
really because of that purpose. So just so you know, like I
Okay.
live in Coconut Grove. I
Okay. Okay.
this is the closest to my heart. I love being in the Grove. I've been here 12 years. And for me it's definitely home. I met my wife at the dog park. I got married at the Mayfair. And we officed there for almost 11 years.
Nice.
So Grove is definitely to me it's the hottest market and the best in many ways in South Florida. But the Gables is a place where it's also on the up. If you look at
Got it.
downtown Gables and the rejuvenation that they have seen in the last couple of years, I mean, just go to Miracle Mile and compare it to 5 years ago, or see Geralda Place, and even more within the city of Coral Gables. Their investment in public art, their standards for building, the fact that they've maintained some of the most consistent property values in the ups and downs, because it's not really a speculator's market in Coral Gables. So
Hmm.
it's a first
True.
class, world class city. It was just voted the top place to live by one of the ranking publications in Florida. So there's a lot of reasons to love the Gables, and it's not at the expense of Coconut Grove or anywhere else.
Sure. So anybody who hasn't been to South Florida or really not familiar with the Miami area, Coconut Grove is a real. How would you describe it, Rishi?
It's a
Coconut Grove is
village.
more of a
Co-
bohemian type of. Yeah, it's a village. It's a
yeah,
village, but beautiful foliage and trees. If you like
yeah. I mean,
trees, that's the
Coconut
place you want to
Grove
be.
is like, it's really funny. You can drive Coral Gables and Coconut Grove's boundary going on Lejeune south. And on the eastern side, you'll see they're both lush. And I think that's the beauty of both of
Hmm.
these cities slash jurisdiction, because Coconut Grove is a part of Miami. But ultimately, if you look on the Grove side, you'll see raw, uh, uh, really natural landscaping. and everything. And then if you look on the Coral
That's
Gables
right.
side, they have very strict landscaping regulations, and there's nowhere better to see that dichotomy than if you're traveling on Lejeune and looking on each side of the road there, the kind of difference in approach between the two. And the Grove's just it's a great little village. It's a beautiful local community.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, the other thing with the Gables, or Coral Gables, which is it's a suburb of Miami. Coconut Grove is a
Yep.
neighborhood in the city of Miami. But the beauty of Coral Gables is a lot of the executives who work in the near Miami International Airport. There's an area called Doral. There's an
Mhm.
area called Blue Lagoon, which is an office park where Burger King and others, Popeye's Chicken, and others all have locations there. So a lot of executives who basically work in these suburban office parks in Doral and Blue Lagoon, they all live in the Gables because it's a very easy commute. And as we all know, traffic can be a pain in the ass
100%.
in Miami.
And to your point about those executives, I mean that's who's been buying Villa Valencia. We have some of the top local executives and entrepreneurs in the area that are buying homes there. It's really a building for that type of clientele that want an elevated living experience, but in a condominium, yet centrally
Yep.
located to everything, for the reasons that you just said. I mean, you're 10 minutes away from the airport as well. So,
Yep.
that
Well, and I think too, one of the issues that places like the city of Miami Beach and Key Biscayne are facing, these are beachfront destinations that are pulling really high condo prices. Problem they're running into now is this global sea level rise, where the Gables is one of the highest parts of South Florida around. So you got that predictability, some would argue, myself included, of going into the Gables, and you're not going to get washed out the way potentially you get washed out every couple months in city of Miami Beach when there's a king tide or any kind of
you hit
series of
it.
rain.
Couldn't have said it better. And one of our last buyers, to make the point, that we closed a contract on a couple of months ago, is moving from Pine Drive to our building in Coral Gables.
Wow.
Yeah,
Pine Tree. They're leaving Pine Tree in Miami
that's
Beach and they're
correct.
going to Coral Gables. There you go. Yeah, you guys are definitely nailing it. Now let me ask you, Rishi, you said what
We
percentage of the
sold,
building is
yeah,
sold?
we sold just
Or
under
what?
30% of the building.
Okay, so 30% of the building is sold and you guys are under construction. So you got it financed, or you're building what they call on
Yep.
spec with
We,
your own
we've
money,
we've
or
self-financed construction, and then and
well
and then
done.
we
Wow.
also are building. I mean, the average deposit that we are receiving is between 40 and 50%. So we're, as you know, in
Okay.
Florida, other than the first 10%, you can use those proceeds towards construction.
Mhm.
And ultimately,
Yep.
that's part of the value proposition that we are trying to discuss with our clientele, that yes, you're putting up a larger deposit, but that ultimately is allowing us to keep our financing costs lower. And I feel like I can deliver
Correct.
a better value on the product by keeping that financing charge lower.
Now, Rishi, one of the things that's said, and I saw it last cycle with the St. Regis Bell Harbor, is when you build when the market is sort of going sideways, and there's a debate going on in South Florida. Is the market going to bounce back after COVID? Is it a V recovery? Is it an L? Is it whatever, whatever, whatever? But one of the things that's often said is when no one else is building and you're able to build, even if you fund yourself, basically you're getting the labor and potentially the materials cheaper. Is that something you've experienced thus far, or is it just too early in
Yeah,
the
I
process?
think it's too early in the process. Like, this is all relatively a near term event that we've been going through. But I 100%, and we're already seeing it, that cost will come down in some regards in the coming months. And that's a really general statement, because you'll have some things that, due to potentially labor or supply chain concerns abroad, might
Sure.
go up in price. But as a net expectation, we do expect to see some of our construction costs to come in.
Got it. And one last question
Yeah.
about, at least from my perspective on
Yep.
Valencia. So it's 39 units. How
We're
many stories
13
is it? How many
stories,
floors?
topping out at just over 150 feet, and just completely unobstructed views to the South Gables to Key Biscayne. From our 8th floor on, you've got water views. It's just an amazing location.
And what are the maintenance fees coming in at ballpark?
Mhm.
And obviously things change, yada yada yada. Because one of the challenges sometimes you run into with more of a boutique type of building is that there's fewer people who basically got to cover the cost versus
Yep.
a 500 unit building where everybody's kicking into the kitty to cover the expenses.
Yeah,
every
we've
month
been
for the
very
association.
careful with our initial condo budget proposal, where we do have service in the building. We have 24/7 security and concierge. We have, for most of the day, valet will be available. So we want to be careful with the amount of staff that we have there. But a big advantage for us is that, as you said, many of those condo fees in luxury buildings are higher because of insurance costs because they're close to the water. So ultimately, yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
So
Yeah, I totally
we
agree
have
with you.
come in at 89 cents a foot, which has been great.
89. Wow, that's impressive. And for context, generally speaking, what we see greater downtown Miami, you're looking at 75 cents a foot per month. When you go on the beach, you're looking at least $1. The highest price I saw this cycle in terms of condo developers was a building called Glass. They were
Yeah.
pushing $2 a foot, just to give you context. And you're asking 89 cents a foot. So
Yep.
the audience gets some
Yep.
perspective.
So that's ultimately where we are, with Villa Valencia. And that thesis is, just to put a bow on that, is to take the single family home concept of our high-end home
Mhm.
and packaging it in a boutique condominium setting. And we plan to be a national developer, expanding the business line based on the program that we have at Villa Valencia.
Wow. I've seen, we were talking before this podcast. I've seen a developer up in Fort Lauderdale that has a very similar type of model where basically you want to get that person who's leaving the single family house because they don't want to pay the rising insurance costs and they want the latest technology so they can, fight against hurricanes or battle against hurricanes, live through it all, but yet have the same home type of feel. And it really seems to be a winning type of strategy. So I applaud you on that. The only question I do have though is, have you guys gone this big before? Have you gone this tall, this kind of price point? And what sort of steps are you taking just to, just provide assurance to yourself, your
Yeah, I
investors,
mean,
as well as your buyers?
this is one of our larger projects today, which will be surpassed by projects that we are working on now. But the team,
Mhm.
our chief development officer, her name is Vivian Bonet. She is a partner in our company. She's a partner in the project. She's been first an architect working at Willie Bermeo's office, helping design high rises, and then ultimately a development director for over 15 buildings throughout South Florida over the last 30 years. So, as a partner in our organization, she's an invaluable piece on the construction side. And then obviously, we've really supplemented our team with folks that have come from some of the best pedigree shops as part of our team that ultimately understand the development business, and we're very comfortable executing on what it is that we have in front of us.
Got it. Now, Rishi, I tend to talk a little bit too much and we kind of blew our time allotment. Can you stick around for another 10 minutes? We take a short commercial break.
Yep.
I'll bring you back on the other side in 10 minutes. We can get through your fourth division and then I can ask you a couple questions
Yes,
about some of the things you're seeing. Okay. All right. You're listening to the Condo Vultures podcast. I'm Peter Zalewski, and I have the pleasure of having Rishi Kapoor, CEO of Location Ventures, on the line. He's going to be kind enough to stick around for a third segment. This is the first time we're doing it, but I think this conversation is worthy of it. So we'll catch you on the other side of the break. This is Peter Zalewski of the Condo Vultures podcast. Before I started doing these podcasts, I was in the business of being a licensed real estate broker, a contributing columnist for the Miami Herald, as well as the Miami Real Deal, but also extra witness work in consulting. So if you are looking for an expert witness, or if you're looking for consulting services, a straight talk perspective as to what's going on in a particular marketplace, a building, or what happened previously, for whatever your situation is, whether you are an attorney, whether you are a institutional fund looking to invest, or whether you're a lender who's trying to come up with some sort of strategy and approach for your lending committee going forward, I don't just want to be able to help you. To get a hold of me, please reach out to Peter at condovultures.com. That's Peter at condovultures.com, or give me a call to the office at 305-865-5859, 305-865-5859. Welcome back to the Condo Vultures podcast. This is Peter Zalewski. I am your host. We are, for the first time ever, going to have a third segment with a guest. And who's that guest? That guest is Rishi Kapoor, as you know, CEO of Location Ventures, currently located in Coconut Grove, but they're cutting bait and they're going to the Gables. Although Rishi still lives in the Grove. So he's kind of a man with two places. He's got a foot in both worlds. So if you live, or if you're a fan of the Grove or the Gables, don't bust his chops too hard, because he's sort of playing both sides. But hey, nothing wrong with either of them, right? So Rishi, you're sticking around. You're giving me more information. You've answered a lot of my questions. I hope I wasn't busting
Not
your
at all.
chops too hard. But now I want to hear about the fourth division. So just to remind everybody, you have your condo division, you have your single family home division, and then the original division was, how would you define?
Multifamily renovations. That's our third. And then our newest division, which is quickly becoming our largest division, is a co-living, co-working, and wellness platform that we call Urban, and that's URBIN. And the meaning of that name is for inclusion in the urban core.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Interesting. So when did you guys first come up with this concept? How have you applied it, and how has it changed?
Yeah. So
since COVID?
my primary business partner, one of my best friends going back to and who I founded the company with, his name's Daniel Matha. Him and I worked on this concept for years. And really, one of the reasons we bought the condominium that I told you about earlier was to kind of...
Yep. The one across from the University of Miami that was a little bit older, 30
Yep.
years old. You guys went in there, you refurbished it, and you went from $2 a foot per
That's
month
correct.
to $4 a foot.
Yeah,
Well
thank
done.
you so much. And part of that was DJ, who is Daniel's nickname that we call him. Yeah,
Is he actually a DJ, or is that just initials? Nickname?
those are his initials, but sometimes I think he thinks he's a DJ. So,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
listen, it's a Miami. I mean, Ronnie Cycli, one of the first players on the Miami Heat. What does he do now? He's not making a big deal of the fact that he was a former National Basketball Association player. He makes a big deal that he's a DJ,
Yeah.
an actual DJ.
So,
So
so
who knows?
So DJ, we put up an advertisement in December, towards the end of 2017, and we wanted to start renting by the bedroom. And DJ put it up on Craigslist, and within 1 week, we were advertising for $1,000 a bedroom. Within 1 week, we had 20 requests for showings. Yeah.
What? Whoa. Time out. So we're talking about a
Yep.
2 or 3 bedroom unit with one kitchen,
Yep.
1 or 2 bathrooms, and it's
That's
separate
correct.
bedrooms. And you're getting $1,000 a year
And that
per
was
bedroom a
unfurnished.
month?
And then we started advertising them furnished, and we were getting anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500.
And this is without Airbnb. This is simply Craigslist, no brokers,
correct.
nothing like that. Wow, that's legally
So,
printing money.
I mean, it was a great value proposition because, whether you were a student coming in as a group, you were a student individually, or you're a young professional that you don't have folks to put together a unit for, the thesis behind everything we do at Urban is keeping the top line price down. So ultimately,
Sure.
you're living in a beautiful part of a community like the Gables or Center Grove, which I'll tell you about, or Miami Beach, which I'll also tell you about. And we ultimately said, how do we help people live in the most desirable markets, but at an affordable price with something that they can be proud of to call home? So we furnished the rentals. We leased up within months, and that had been the prototype for our urban business line. So ultimately, in 2018, DJ and I wanted to take this business to a big picture level. So we said, how do we open 100 locations internationally over the next couple of decades and ultimately create a new platform for living where people can live, work, and seek wellness across the globe, but be able to pay a single location or a multiple location price. So we are underway with our first three locations: Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, and Miami-Dade. Those are all at various
Okay.
phases. We'll do one more project in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale Beach, and we're working with a JV owner there. And then ultimately
Okay.
we'll move on beyond South Florida, going into next year on our business plan. It's expanding beyond South Florida for development sites in 2021. So our nuance there is number one, affordability, which I talked about both on the live and work side. We could do a whole podcast
Yes.
just on urban, so I'll be very high level. And then number two is sustainability. And what we mean by that is the impact of the building on the environment. So we're taking some of the most
Hmm.
advanced practices that are out there for sustainability measures, both inside the building and outside. And what I mean by that is its impact on the community. And we're okay making that investment because these are not, as I'm sure you've talked to other multifamily or commercial developers, where you build it, you stabilize it, and then traditionally many of them sell them to a buyer that's looking to make a certain yield, right? So for
Yes.
us,
Yes.
this
Yes.
business
Yes.
plan is to hold long term and to be a member of the community and enjoy the cash flow. So we have a much longer venture, like going back to what we talked about earlier, venture like horizon.
Hmm.
And then number three, the third pillar of the brand is what we call mobility. And that's ultimately having that freedom of life, of being able to travel the world, to find a place that you can call home and to work and to get wellness from. And for somebody that's like you, that likes to travel, and maybe you don't want to have
Yep.
your roots planted in one location, we feel that the world is shrinking. You can have a backpack, a hotspot, and a computer and travel and work anywhere. And this last COVID experience that we've been going through is only further proof that the world is heading in that direction of having freedom of life and freedom of location. And we think urban is going to be one of the preeminent brands leading the way for what is an evolving lifestyle.
Now I am, and I just want to get clarification here. So you were talking about a backpack. So there's backpacking and there's what they call
Yeah.
glam packing, and that is basically where you have a backpack, but you're staying in a Ritz Carlton rather than a backpack, and you're staying in a $10 hostel type of situation. You guys are going more towards the
Yeah.
glam pack type of
I
vibe,
would say we're
or
kind of in between because
in
yeah, we're
between?
not
Okay. Okay.
like a high-end Soho house type of experience. Um,
Yep. Which also comes with a huge price tag that
yeah, I
nobody
mean
wants to go
it's
and pay.
beautiful properties. I can't speak to their business, but
Yep.
for us, we are
Yep.
definitely
Yep.
well elevated beyond like a hostel type of experience. So I would call us
Yep.
closer to the high end, but not at all expensive. I mean, our bedrooms start at 1,000 a month. Our private micro units start at around 2,000 a month, and that's just for more dedicated space. You just get huge amounts of amenities, and really the idea is to keep the top line price down for the neighborhood that you want to be in. However, we also have an
Sure.
extended stay program with a minimum stay of 15 days. So, for example, we're developing what we call urban retreat on Washington Avenue in the heart of South Beach. We were behind working with the city of Miami Beach, who was amazing to work with on co-living legislation for South Beach last fall, and
Okay.
we got that passed last fall, and our project is moving forward. And part of the project has an extended stay hotel component where, just imagine yourself as somebody that wants to come live, work, and seek wellness in South Beach, and they want to come for 3 to 4 months. So we
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
provide
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of lifestyle opportunity.
Are you guys going to tap into, in terms of getting the word out, you're going to tap into the Airbnb type of model, or you guys are just going to market it all on your own? Or is there simply enough pent up demand here where you basically just put a sign up and people are going to be
Right
bugging you to get
now,
in?
so we use all of the third-party short-term stay sites. We currently
Okay.
operate just over 100 bedrooms on a short stay model in South
Hmm.
Florida. So we use those, but
Okay.
we have our entire marketing team in-house. So we also do our own lead generation ourselves. So it's a hybrid of utilizing both approaches.
I see. And what's been the approach, or what's been the response since COVID, in terms of living with somebody you don't know, when right now a lot of people had to, virtually the world had to stay at home, if you will. So how does that sort of work, or how did you
Yeah,
guys walk
so
that tightrope?
for as far as living with people that you don't know, we think that that is a huge um that's not really the focal point. It's the that is the minority of people that are coming together. So we are putting units together of people
Hmm.
that for us is maybe like not more than 10% of the business. The majority come
Got it.
together either for their own unit. We're
Oh, okay. So it's like
Mhm.
two roommates or somebody, or maybe a
Yep,
couple, or whatever the case may
and
be.
our product
Got it.
ranges
Okay.
from micro studios for single residents or single couples, and then we have multi-bedroom suites. So depending on the need
Okay.
of the individual, we've diversified our product offering to meet that need.
That's fantastic. But you got to explain something to me. What is a micro,
Micro
what
studio.
you call it, a
Yep.
micro
So
studio? I've never heard micro studio. Typically, when I think of studio, I'm thinking 350 to
yeah.
500 square feet. What is a
So
micro
depending on the
studio?
jurisdiction, and this is like worldwide, you'll have
Okay.
minimums on square footage size for what you would consider a traditional
Yes.
studio. So
And it has nothing to do with financing, correct? It just
yeah,
has to do with the city in which the property is located. Okay.
it has to do with the land use for that particular jurisdiction. So
Got
so
it. Okay.
ultimately, City of Miami, for example, they have allowed 275 square feet to be the new minimum, what you would call micro studio or micro unit. Those are interchangeable terms.
Okay. Okay.
In an environment where it's a transit oriented zone. So that
In other words, a
no,
hotel,
not
like a
even,
hotel
because that
district.
that would be considered not a dwelling unit, but a hospitality unit.
Oh,
So
interesting.
this
Okay.
is like,
Okay.
imagine the arts and entertainment district where you have people
Hmm.
movers and they're putting up
Yes.
towers that have more density to help people afford a lower top line price. So the thesis is that you can use ride sharing or there's public transportation. City of Miami has
Hmm.
not allowed for micro units outside of a couple of different conditions. We're working with the city, who has also been fantastic to work with on this subject, for expanding it to other neighborhoods where appropriate. Uh, so that's what I
Yes.
mean by a micro.
Like around public transportation, Metro Rail, right?
Yep.
Or Virgin, things
Or
like that. That
what
makes
you would
sense.
consider more of a walking oriented district, right? So where that makes
Hmm.
sense, like the center of Coconut Grove or Wynwood or other
Yes.
places. So
Love it. Love it. Love it. Good for you. I wish you a lot of success with that, because, I'm definitely somebody who would, I'd be
yeah.
in that
So
demographic.
thank you so much. We're really excited.
Wow. Okay. So that's
Yes.
the four business lines. Okay. Now you mentioned $400 to $500 million. How does that sort of shake out, and I know it's
Yep.
probably constantly changing. Can you just kind of give us a big
Yeah.
picture? I'm not asking you to, lift up show us your financials, but just so people have an idea when they think of Rishi and they think of,
The majority of our dollars are currently allocated in the urban business line. Um,
wow. So you
yeah,
guys are going all in on
we've
that.
raised a considerable amount of capital. We have some of the best partners of local families and now institutions that are backing us with this venture. In 2019 alone, we had raised just over 85 million locally, which was fantastic. And um, so urban is by far our biggest financial focus at the moment, followed by our condominiums and then our our renovations and single family home business.
I got and that's what I want to ask you related to the micro studios and the urban business. Now, these are units that you guys are strictly going to rent, correct? You're not going to be selling them in any kind of condominium or
That's
kind of
correct.
hotel type of concept.
We're going to
That's correct.
rent
Okay.
and
Okay.
hold long term. If we're holding these properties, 100 properties, 50 years from now, in all of these different jurisdictions, that's ultimately what we are trying to build is an investment vehicle where this bucket. And when I told you about the 4 divisions, it's all about pairing
Yes.
really categories and comfort of capital and that risk reward equation with the right development opportunity. So for this division,
It,
it's for capital that wants to be patient and wants to collect cash flow and grow assets over
mhm.
time versus things like a single family home or a condominium where you might have like a 2 to 5 year horizon. You want to sell and get
Yes.
out. So, that was the reason. It's not only the product differentiation for us, but it's also the capital differentiation for us as well.
So is it safe to say, or am I correct in assuming that with urban, and
Mhm.
that's with an I, that you're actually going in full circle? Because you remember your father had the hotels and your
Mhm.
family had all the hotels, and that was a good cash cow for them. And now, lo and behold, you're coming back around, and this might ultimately be your version, your modern version of what
Well, I
the
mean,
family was
it's
doing
it's
early on.
very interesting that you say that. It's a great observation because we have urban is really like a confluence of everything that we've kind of worked on in my professional career as
Hmm.
well as growing up, and that we have a hospitality component, we have a retail micro market component, we have the office component, and then we have the co-living residential, what you would consider multifamily component as well. So these buildings are really a reflection of a lifestyle and work that we've had experienced in all of these various categories, but combining them into one environment. And it's definitely been helpful that I understood subjects like RevPAR and other metrics and hotel metrics along the way
Hmm.
because that is a part of our financial model at Urban.
Very, very, very interesting. All right, so Rishi,
Yep.
I'm going to start to wind this down because I've taken up too much of your time. Sort of tell me, kind of going forward, what's your expectation in the short term as well as the let's call it medium term? Let's say short term being the next year, or let's say up until the vaccine is ultimately
Yep.
created, and let's hope it gets created. And then what happens sort of after that? And if you can sort of talk to maybe the, let's call it hospitality, i.e. shorter
Yep.
term type of user, as well as the more of the more permanent, the person leaving a house and they're moving into your condominium. So can you just kind of give me what you guys are planning on, what you guys
Yeah.
are penciling out, what your
And do
performers are
you want
saying?
me to answer that in a South Florida context? Is that okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
please,
So, you know,
please.
it's obviously a very unfortunate situation that has started to develop in late February and going into March here locally with COVID. And I think anybody that doesn't tell you they have to completely rethink their 2020 2021 business plan is,
Hmm.
they're either really fortunate or they are kidding themselves, and for us, we definitely have to make adjustments for expectations this year and even thinking into next year. And ultimately, I mean, if we were having this conversation in the middle of April, that was a dark period. And that was a dark
Very
period
dark.
for
Yep.
sure. And you had people that did not want to leave their home or were recommended not to leave their home. They were uncertain about their
Hmm.
livelihood. They were uncertain about their health and well-being. So there were a lot of factors in what was a very difficult period. Now that we're having this conversation at the beginning of June, which I'm more thankful, we're talking now than then. I I think
Yeah, I think the questions would have been a
my
little bit different.
answers, my answers might have been different, and I think that I think
Yes.
we are I'm knocking wood, touching wood, and ultimately, I think we are turning the page. This is a personal prediction that we
Hmm.
are very fortunate. I know people complain about how the government implemented PPP and this new Main Street lending program and other things that are out there and are coming. But to me, it was impressive to see our country respond what I think was so quickly for what is not
Hmm.
typically a quick government is not known to be quick. And for us to get the amount of stimulus that we got into the economy, I'm very bullish about the impacts on that. I think the stock market, this is a topic that I'm sure you've talked about and others have too. That I think there's
Yes.
a bifurcation between stock market and real world expectations. That the stock market is being pulled by future expectations as well as like near term winners that are winning from this experience. So, like you can think of the Zooms or the Amazons, etc. But my
Hmm.
concern is that you're going to see again this matrix of varying levels of being okay and recovering fast, or in real estate, I'm speaking, or some that are in for pain for a prolonged period of time. And the faster that we can get confidence into the market, and what I mean from that is from a health standpoint, the faster things like retail and hospitality, which are going to obviously be two of the most affected industries over the next 2 years, I would imagine, that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
can return to a sense of normalcy. I'm optimistic on what I hear on drug treatment. I'm optimistic that they say, by the fourth quarter we might have early doses of vaccine available. I think those are all positives. I also do believe that depending on your demographic, maybe one demographic of real estate that is older and needs to be more careful with their health, they might be more conservative of interacting in the economy. And you might get others,
Hmm.
and obviously I'm broadly generalizing, and you might get others that are in the younger segment of the economy who are okay getting out and circulating more. And I think you're seeing that. Like, I mean, just over the last couple of weeks, and you live in Miami. I mean, starting about a month ago in early May, I felt like I was already driving back through rush hour traffic. And
Yeah. It seems like it's been stepped up, all the
it,
traffic and
it's
the people on the
definitely stepped
streets.
up.
No
And
question.
and now, I mean, there's so many things that are finally feeling like we're getting back to normal with my beaches
Beaches
open
open
today,
today. June the 10th. They finally opened up in
hotels are
Miami-Dade County.
opening, like things are getting back. I drive by restaurants. We have restaurant tenants that are seeing more activity. You know, it's just
Hmm.
I think things are getting better, and I'm rooting for that. As much of a scare as this is and an impact that there has been, that hopefully the bottom was not what it was that we were fearing back in April.
Got it. Got it. Got it. And you guys are still you still intend to put money on the street? You're still starting to acquire dirt, land, or what?
Yeah,
How are you going that way? And from
for us,
that
it's
regard,
always about opportunity. So anything that makes sense, we will take a look at an opportunity that makes sense. As far as value right now, I mean, as you know, for the assets that are going to feel pain, just think about how many people are getting forbearance or lender workouts and all of these
yep,
rent assistance. All of this is
yep,
prolonging pain, right?
yep.
And then once that
Hmm.
clears, hopefully, and I'm rooting for every single person out there because I think it's a grave injustice what it is that we've gone through. That ultimately that pain is avoided because we gave enough people to get back, gave enough time for people to get back on their feet. Now that's going to happen for a good amount of people. Unfortunately, there's going to be businesses that never reopen, which will affect the real estate that they are in. But as you know, that
Yep.
process takes time. And I don't think you're going to see real estate value from an asset purchase standpoint well into next year. I do think
Hmm.
you've seen
Hmm.
a lot of debt trade on notes that are out there starting to trade at discounts. I think that was a reaction to a variety of different things in a different subject. But that to me, you'll see more of near term is buying debt versus actually buying the asset, which I think is I don't expect to see that value in the near term. But to answer just real quickly the second part of your question, we are looking. We're obviously very focused on executing on our existing pipeline, but we do have a business plan that we are sticking to in each of our divisions.
And then I guess well, two final questions, if you will. First one is, I had a hard money lender on. He's putting $75 million on the street. Anybody who wants to hear that podcast, it's podcast number 10. Basically, the gentleman's putting $75 million on the street. He had gone into this year looking at $100 million, his own money as well as investor cash, short-term basis, 14-month types of loans, 8 to 12% interest when a conventional bank is, 2.46. So this guy's anticipating up to a 35% price decrease or drop in certain neighborhoods, especially like downtown Miami and Sunny Isles. What are you anticipating, and how firm is Coral Gables, at least for your Villa Valencia? How much confidence you have in there, and how are you positioning?
Yeah, so great
that project?
question. I definitely think you're going to see some areas where that type of price drop could be realistic. I think it's a little on the aggressive side, and maybe would have been
Okay.
more accurate if we didn't get the amount of stimulus and just think the lender backing that is now out there.
Mhm.
Because a big movement in price is predicated on people's availability to finance it, right? And and
Correct. Yeah, obviously, if the bank's not willing to give you the money or work with you on the money, therefore you're going to need to sell, or they're going to take it from you and sell it dirt cheap, which
yeah,
is going to kill the prices. So
or
yeah,
or
I would
if you're
agree with you on
looking to
that.
buy, you've got to stretch your equity further because
That's right.
the financing isn't there in the capital stack. I think the prediction's a little on the high side. I personally hope that it is. But being in Coral Gables, going back to what I said earlier, I would really think of Coral Gables as a fortress market. And if you look at the average prices, even through the last couple of recessions, you don't see some of the big troughs like you see in downtown, for example, where there's just,
Hmm.
you know better than anybody with your subject matter, where there was just years and years of inventory available. And for us, we're not building in a very deep pool as far as new inventory, and also
Yes.
we are not a speculators market. People are not coming to Coral Gables and buying because this is going to be like a piggy bank from Latin America or other countries. That's not the reason people are buying here. I mean, they're putting up 40 to 50% deposits, which traditionally in those markets
Hmm.
where you see the higher declines is because of they're just really low deposits that get into the buildings. Then people can't close. There's too much inventory. The prices then depreciate at a rapid pace. So for us, we think, because we have such strong deposits, we're primarily catering to locals that are affluent and making a lifestyle change. And then honestly, I have to say, we've seen a net increase from places like we're negotiating with a buyer from Chicago and New York right now. Both of those
Interesting.
markets are going to accelerate trends of relocation because of COVID, and because of the
Yes.
fact that you now realize you can kind of work anywhere for many businesses. So I think you're going to see Florida end up a net real estate winner over the next 18 months coming out of this.
Got it. And then I guess
Oh,
my
if I could say
final
one thing, Peter.
question is, oh,
In the last
yeah,
couple of
please,
weeks,
please.
we just sold $12 million worth of units at Villa Valencia, all at or just around $1,000 a foot. And I'm proud to say that because it is clear that a market will appreciate good product, that they recognize there's value, and ultimately they're making a lifestyle change. And we have another 3 units currently under negotiation with local buyers, as well as the Chicago and New York buyers that I previously mentioned. So I'm just saying that I think
Mhm.
we're seeing activity noticeably pick up since the beginning of May.
Now, you went to business school, you went to law school, you had this idea of what you wanted to be. How the hell did you end up a developer, and how do you sleep? And this is where I'm coming from. Developers are gunslingers. They take risk, they create something, but there's huge potential rewards as well as distress, if you will. So how do you navigate that line? Because you seem like a real level-headed, not a lot of bravado in your face, machismo, like I see from a lot of the developers down here in Miami. And yet the risk reward is so dramatic in that industry. And so why do you want to be a developer? Why are you a developer? And how
Yeah,
the hell
that's
do you
a
sleep at night?
great question. Listen, number one is going back to what I said earlier in our segment is that my passion is to create and the product. I didn't have a
Hmm.
great tech company idea, a great, product on Shark Tank, or anything like that. My product that I knew is real estate. And having worked when I was in college, I worked for a local developer, then worked for another developer outside of college. And I love the business. You're creating product. And what I want to be known as is somebody that in each of the divisions we work in, we're just putting out the best product that people have seen in those types of assets. So I want to create most people, 90% of people spend 90% of their day inside. So I want to create great real estate experiences for people to enjoy. So that it starts with the passion. And then number two is developing products that we think are financially rewarding and make sense both for the consumer as well as for us and then our investors. So that is a fun part of the exercise. And then if you look at my background, I didn't when I entered college, and I didn't know I never forecasted I would be a developer, but having a management and business background, understanding finance, working at a developer's office as an intern, then growing from there, um, having a legal background, ultimately contributing on the marketing and sales side. I mean, that is the development business, adding that to architecture, design, and construction. So I think development is just this amazing industry where you're bringing together a whole suite of skills under one roof. And it's one word, but it's really just so many different disciplines, excuse me, that are being put together to create product. So that's the why I became a developer. And on the sleep side, um, man, that's for another show. Definitely definitely light on the sleep hours. It's definitely a high amount of stress for all of those good aspects. There's also difficult aspects that, you're putting out difficult battles on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, you got to keep in mind that you're trying to win the war, not just one battle. And, hopefully when you get to that finish line, it's all been worth it from both a product standpoint that you can be proud of, as well as a financial standpoint that you feel well compensated for the time that you've put in and the risk that you've taken. And let me tell you, and I'll end with this, is that there is nothing easy about the development business. It is a very, very tough
No.
business. It's not just finding dirt and putting money and making a sale or renting units. It is one of the toughest businesses out there because of all of the moving pieces. So I think developers appropriately charge for the returns that they're seeking, given the time and the risk that you have at play.
And Rishi, you sound like one of the reasons why I tell people Silicon Valley, they make technology, South
Yeah.
Florida, we make condos. That was a fantastic discussion. I really appreciate it. That's Rishi Kapoor. He's the CEO of Location Ventures. They're based in the Grove, but they're going to be moving to Coral Gables. Rishi, how does somebody who wants to get a hold of you, how do they reach out?
Yeah. I mean,
What
the
do you
best
recommend?
is through our website. Yeah, if anybody wants to talk shop, it's Kapoor at location.ventures. I'm sometimes notoriously slow on email, so that's no insult. We just have a lot going on, but I do try to get my team involved.
And that's
in
Rishi Kapoor,
scheduling,
CEO of Location
discussions for
Adventures.
anybody in our
Thanks for
community
listening to
as
this for
possible.
episode of the Condo Vultures podcast. This was episode number 12, and the first time we ever did 3 segments on one guest. But Rishi, you were definitely worth it. Though, thanks for participating, and we wish you all the best of luck with your health and with your business and with the whole COVID situation.
Don't buy a South Florida condo, discounted or distressed, before taking a Condo Vultures correction tour. CondoVultures.com offers weekly bus and walking tours that focus on educating buyers on the how-tos of identifying discounted condos, analyzing the opportunities, and purchasing units. Every tour attendee receives a list of all condo projects in a particular market, a market assessment handout, and unmatched expert analysis. For more information on the condo correction tours, please visit condovultures.eventbrite.com.
I hope you found that podcast as interesting as I did. Rishi Kapoor definitely has an interesting story. Taking some chances, but he's in for some big rewards if he's able to execute. And execution's always the key to anything. Speaking of that, that was our 12th episode of the Condo Vultures podcast. And as mentioned, when we first began this podcast, we made a couple little small changes along the way from our first 10 podcasts. Biggest differences are, again, just to remind you, on Tuesdays, we're going to be publishing a South Florida real estate and economic roundtable discussion where I get 4 different individuals, myself included, kicking around the 4 or 5 biggest headlines that occurred in real estate, as well as the economy in South Florida within the last week. So you want to make sure you tune in for that. And then on Thursdays, we're going to be doing these guest interviews. As time goes by, hopefully we're able to give you a real good sense of who some of the players are in the South Florida real estate market. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, you have any criticisms, you want to ask any questions, anything like that, feel free to reach out to us at inquiry@condovultures.com. That's INQUIRY.com. And we'll be sure, if it's a comment, to read it on the air during our roundtable section, or if it's a suggestion or anything like that, we'll email you back. So hope you enjoyed the podcast. I'm Peter Zalewski of the Condo Vultures podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and check back in next week. Thanks a lot. Ciao, ciao.